Okay, this is Block 7, The Greatest Generation. Section 5, the home front, with the section beginning, Keeping Up Morale. There is a lot less anti-war feeling in the United States during World War II than there had been during World War I. The Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor took a country that was divided on whether to fight or not and really united it in a fundamental way. And so, for that reason, there was no need in World War II for anything like the Espionage Act or the Sedition Act of World War I. Even American communists that had, of course, not supported World War I, supported World War II because Stalin and the Soviet Union were fighting it. Americans were expected, culturally and by their government, to bear the burden of the war with little complaint. People who complained were seen as, what are you complaining about? You could be British, you could be Russian, you could be German, you could be at the front, you could be, everyone knew life was a little more difficult, but people were not expected to complain. Celebrities did their part to encourage Americans to support the war effort. Hollywood celebrities, made public service announcements. Many of them went to war themselves. An actor by the name of Ronald Reagan participated in films kind of showing the point of the war effort and why, the soldiers ought to be supported at the front. Posters and, posters played, you have a whole assignment on posters, but posters did their part and encouraged Americans to support the war effort, be careful about spies, be on the lookout for espionage, and to support bond drives. Bond drives raised hundreds of millions of dollars to pay for the war. It was kind of the standard thing that you should give 10% of your income to buy bonds. And anything less than 10% of your income to buy bonds, you were kind of looked at askance by your neighbors, because it would get around in town who was giving and who was not. Here's a poster, and you're going to see lots more in your assignment of buy war bonds. You have to support these guys. Look at these guys, risking their lives. Someone has to supply the stuff, support the men, build those airplanes flying overhead, and that money was to be gotten by from American citizens buying bonds. People kind of played a daily role, in the war effort as well. Since food was rationed, you could eat as much food as you could grow. So families got involved planting what were known as victory gardens to grow some of their own food. And here, you have a picture. Here's a typical suburban-looking family, mom and dad and their 3 little kids, out in their yard, growing corn and tomatoes and things that they would use to supplement their rations. Housewives were directed to collect their kitchen grease, which would be used during the war. It's oil. I mean, oil is important stuff. Children run around their neighborhoods collecting scrap metal, which they would turn in for pennies. And it kind of made everybody feel like they were a part of this. Franklin Roosevelt, they were going to shut down Major League Baseball for the duration of the war, but Roosevelt ordered it to continue, just so people could go somewhere and get their mind off of the war at times. That everybody pitched in. It was not like today where it's very easy to forget that there are American soldiers fighting overseas right now. And unlike today, the most famous Americans joined the Army. Joe DiMaggio, famous baseball player, Ted Williams, some of the most famous actors of the day, James Cagney joined the military. If it was something that, everyone kind of bared, paid the price and bore the burden, pretty, not cheerfully, but stoically at least. Now, unlike World War I, it was not exactly clear why the United States was in the war. Like we said earlier, that it was seen as a job to do. A professional job. Get it done, and that's kind of it. So the government commissioned a director by the name of Frank Capra to direct a series of films called Why We Fight. And Why We Fight was a series of 7 movies explaining why the United States ought to be fighting this war. And there's Frank Capra with his ever-present pipe, and you can see that here's the good United States with the eagle, and here's the sun of Imperial Japan threatening the West Coast, and that swastika of Nazi Germany over here threatening the East Coast. The famous animator Walt Disney pitched in with animated scenes in Why We Fight. Ronald Reagan helped out as well. It was a It was something that, you know, when Americans went to the movies, these wily fights, they would be shown. They were not long, and they would be shown before the main movie, just to kind of let the people know what exactly they were up against. The war did not take on this moral cast until the concentration camps came to light at the very, very end of the war, and then a lot of soldiers and Americans both kind of looked around and said, "Oh, now I get it. This is why we've been fighting."